I still remember the sound, that hollow pop. The 12th of April, 2013, third quarter against the Warriors. One moment I was driving to the basket like I had thousands of times before. The next moment, darkness. My Achilles tendon had torn completely. 17 years in the league, 5 championships, and now I was facing the hardest challenge of my career. The strange thing, as I sat there on that hardwood floor, feeling my career potentially slipping away, a calm washed over me, I knew this moment would define me more than any championship ever could. Not the injury itself, but how I responded to it. Most people see adversity as something to avoid, something to fear. But I discovered something on that court that changed everything. Adversity isn't your enemy. It's your greatest teacher, your most honest friend. When I was carried off that court, reporters asked if this was the end. Fans wondered if I'd ever return. Doctors told me the odds. But here's what none of them understood. The Mamba mentality isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about learning to dance in the rain. I faced a choice that night. The same choice you face every time life knocks you down. Do you stay down or do you rise? Do you accept defeat or do you transform it into fuel? Your answer to that question will determine not just what you achieve, but who you become. Let me take you behind the scenes of what happened next. Not just my rehabilitation, not just my comeback, but the mental transformation that turned my greatest setback into my defining moment. A transformation that you can apply to any challenge you're facing right now. The journey I'm about to share with you isn't about basketball. It's about the philosophy that sustained me through my darkest hours. The mindset that turned adversity into strength. The Mamba mentality that can transform your life just as it transformed mine. The hospital room was quiet that night. Just me, my thoughts, and the weight of uncertainty. The doctors had confirmed what I already knew: complete Achilles rupture, surgery required, months of rehabilitation ahead. At 34 years old, with all those miles on my body, the odds weren't in my favor. But something happens in those moments when everything is stripped away, when the crowds are gone, when the spotlight's dim, when it's just you facing your own mortality. You discover what truly matters. I remember lying there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about my first day as a Laker. I was 17 years old, just a kid with a dream and the determination to outwork everyone. Now here I was, wondering if I'd ever step on that court again. Most people misunderstand the Mamba mentality. They think it's about winning at all costs, about being ruthless. But that night in the hospital, I reconnected with its true essence. The Mamba mentality isn't about the outcome, it's about the process. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about embracing the struggle that leads to growth. The pain was real, physical, yes, but mostly mental. The doubts crept in like shadows. Maybe this is it. Maybe I should just retire. Maybe I've given all I have to give. These thoughts didn't make me weak, they made me human. What separated me wasn't the absence of fear or doubt. It was what I chose to do with them. While others let adversity break them, I decided to let it make me the same. Adversity that destroys some becomes the foundation upon which others build greatness. I made a decision that night. I wouldn't just recover. I wouldn't just return. I would use this moment to transform, to reach a level of mental toughness that few ever discover. The path forward wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving something to myself. The next morning, as the sun rose outside my hospital window, I texted my trainer, now the real work begins. Not next week, not when I felt better, not when the timing was right now. Because adversity doesn't wait for convenient moments, and neither should your response to it. My rehabilitation began at 4:30 the next morning, when the world was still dark, when the pain was at its worst, when every logical voice would tell you to rest. That's when champions separate themselves. Most people wait for motivation to find them. They wait to feel ready. But Here's what I discovered through blood, sweat, and countless hours of rehabilitation. Motivation is a myth. Discipline is the reality. The ability to push through when every fiber of your being is screaming for you to stop, that's where transformation happens. The physical therapy was brutal. Relearning to walk, building strength in muscles that had atrophied, fighting through pain that would make most quit. But the physical battle was nothing compared to the mental one. Every morning I faced the same enemy. Not the injury, not the pain, but the voice in my head that said, maybe this time it's too much. This voice visits everyone. The difference isn't whether you hear it. The difference is whether you listen to it. I developed a ritual during those dark morning sessions. Before dawn, when the doubts were loudest, I would visualize my entire career. From the kid shooting in his driveway in Italy to the championships with the Lakers. I would see every obstacle I had overcome, every critic I had silenced, every time I had been counted out only to rise again. Then I would look at this new challenge, this torn Achilles, and think, you're just another chapter in my story. You're not my ending. You're my turning point. The Mamba mentality isn't born in moments of glory. It's forged in the darkness, in the quiet hours when no one is watching, in the painful moments when continuing seems impossible. This is the crucible where your true character emerges. I wasn't rehabilitating just to return to the court. I was rehabilitating to return to myself, a better version, a stronger version, a version that understood that adversity isn't just something to overcome, it's something to be grateful for. Because here's the truth I discovered during those grueling months. Your greatest setbacks contain the seeds of your greatest comebacks. The deeper the wound, the greater the strength that can emerge from it, but only if you're willing to endure the fire of transformation. 8 months after that fateful night, I stepped back onto the court. Not the same player I was before, in some ways less, in other ways infinitely more. The journey had changed me, not just physically, but mentally. I had discovered principles of resilience that went beyond basketball, principles that can transform any challenge you face. The first principle, embrace the reality of your situation. When I tore my Achilles, I didn't waste time asking why me. I immediately asked, what now? There's a profound difference between these two questions. One keeps you trapped in victimhood. The other propels you towards solutions. Most people spend their energy fighting against reality, wishing things were different, comparing their situation to others. But the Mamba mentality begins with radical acceptance. See things exactly as they are, not better, not worse, then decide what you're going to do about it. The second principle, break down the impossible into the possible. When I first started rehabilitation, walking normally seemed impossible. Playing NBA basketball again, that seemed like fantasy. So I didn't focus on the end goal, I focused on today's goal. Can I flex my foot 1 degree more than yesterday? Can I hold this position for 5 more seconds? Your challenges may seem overwhelming when viewed as a whole. The key is to divide them into manageable pieces. Small victories compound, tiny improvements consistently made lead to breakthrough results. The third principle, find purpose in your pain. My injury forced me to develop aspects of my game I had neglected. I couldn't rely on my athleticism anymore, so I had to become smarter, more efficient, more strategic. The limitation became a pathway to evolution. Your obstacles aren't stopping you from reaching your potential. They're redirecting you toward it. The detour is not a denial of your destination. It's often the path you needed all along. The fourth principle, redefine your relationship with failure. During my comeback, there were days when my body wouldn't cooperate, when progress seemed non-existent, when doubt would creep back in. In those moments, I learned that failure isn't falling short. Failure is giving up. Every setback is feedback. Every struggle is data. Every obstacle is information. When you remove the emotional judgment from failure and see it simply as a necessary step toward mastery, you become unstoppable. These principles aren't just how I approach basketball. They're how I approach life. And they're available to you right now, regardless of what challenge you're facing. The question isn't whether these principles work. The question is whether you have the courage to apply them. December 2015, I stood at center court of the Staples Center, looking up at the faces of thousands of fans who had witnessed my journey for 2 decades. I had announced my retirement earlier that season. The torn Achilles had been just one chapter in a story filled with triumphs and setbacks. Now, as that story was coming to a close, I understood something profound about adversity that I want to share with you. People often ask me if I regretted the injury, if I wished it had never happened. My answer surprised them. I told them it was one of the most valuable experiences of my career, not because I enjoyed the pain or the struggle, but because it revealed something that success never could. It revealed my true character. It showed me who I really was when everything was stripped away. You see, we don't really know who we are in moments of glory. Those moments reveal our talents, our abilities, our potential, but our character, that's revealed in the darkness. In the moments when continuing seems impossible, when giving up would be understandable, when no one would blame you for walking away. After my retirement, I reflected on my 20-year career, the 5 championships, the MVP awards, the All-Star games. But what I found myself most proud of wasn't the accolades. It was the resilience, the ability to transform adversity into strength. The moments when I fell and found a way to rise again. This is what the Mamba mentality truly means. It's not just a catchphrase or a marketing slogan. It's a philosophy of life, a commitment to growth regardless of circumstance, an understanding that our greatest limitations often become our greatest opportunities for evolution. Let me tell you about the day I scored my final 60 points. The 13th of April, 2016, my last game. My body was depleted after 20 years of pushing it to the absolute limit. The wear and tear of countless battles had taken its toll. But something happened that night, something that perfectly captured the essence of turning adversity into strength. In the first half, I missed shot after shot. My body wasn't responding the way it once did. The years of punishment were evident in every movement. To many watching, it seemed like a sad ending to a legendary career. But the Mamba mentality isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. As the game progressed, something shifted. Not in my body, that was still limited by age and injury, but in my mind, I embraced the struggle. I found a rhythm within the limitations. I stopped fighting against reality and started working with it. And in that acceptance, I found freedom. The result, 60 points in my final game, a comeback victory, a fitting end to a career defined not by perfection, but by the relentless pursuit of through adversity. But here's what most people missed about that night. The 60 points weren't the victory. The real victory had happened years before, when I decided that adversity would be my teacher rather than my destroyer. When I chose to see obstacles not as barriers, but as gateways. When I committed to the principle that has guided my entire life, turn adversity into strength. This philosophy extends far beyond basketball. Think about the challenges you're facing right now, the setbacks that seem to be holding you back, the obstacles that appear to be blocking your path? What if those very things are actually preparing you for something greater? What if they're not happening to you, but for you? I've worked with countless young athletes who wanted the glory without the struggle. They wanted the highlight reel without the hours in the gym. They wanted the championship without the challenges that forge champions. But that's not how greatness works. That's not how life works. True greatness isn't about avoiding difficulties. It's about developing the capacity to transform those difficulties into fuel for your evolution. It's about using the fire that's meant to consume you as the energy that propels you forward. Here's what I want you to understand. Your current struggle is developing something in you that future success never could. It's building resilience, perspective, wisdom, strength of character. These qualities can't be given to you. They can only be developed through adversity. When I look back at my journey, from the kid practicing in empty gyms to the champion on the world's biggest stage to the injured veteran fighting for one last comeback, I see a common thread: the willingness to embrace discomfort, the commitment to growth regardless of circumstance, the understanding that pain properly channeled becomes power. This is your invitation, not to seek out suffering, but to transform the inevitable challenges of life into catalysts for your evolution, to develop a mindset that doesn't just endure adversity, but actively uses it as a tool for becoming more than you were before. The Mamba mentality isn't about being fearless. I felt fear. It isn't about being flawless. I made countless mistakes. It isn't about never falling. I fell repeatedly. It's about what you do with those experiences. It's about the alchemy of turning weakness into strength, obstacles into opportunities, and defeats into lessons. As you leave here today, I want you to look at the challenges in your life differently, not as punishments to be endured, but as opportunities to be embraced, not as evidence of your limitations, but as invitations to discover strengths you didn't know you possessed. Remember, the depth of your struggle often determines the height of your success. Not because struggle magically leads to success, but because the person you become through adversity is capable of achievements the previous version of you could never have imagined. This is the legacy I hope to leave, not just as a basketball player, but as someone who understood a fundamental truth about the human journey. We are not defined by what happens to us. We are defined by how we respond to what happens to us. We are defined by our ability to transform adversity into strength. The world will remember the championships, the records, the accolades, but what matters most to me is that they remember the resilience, the persistence, the unwavering belief that with the right mindset, even our deepest wounds can become sources of our greatest power. So I'll ask you one final question, all the same question I asked myself when I sat on that court with a torn Achilles, when I struggled through months of painful rehabilitation. When I faced the end of a career I had given everything to, will you allow your challenges to break you, or will you use them to break through to a version of yourself you've never seen before? The choice is yours. The opportunity is waiting. The moment is now. Mamba out.